Welcome, Neil, to this one-to-one session that we're going to have, where we're going to talk about you and the man behind the Safety 7. There are a few reasons that I wanted to interview you, Neil, for, and I'm just going to explain those in detail before we kick off with the questions. So, Neil, I think you have a really great personal brand. You're someone that I really admire. You clearly give your time to others. You cheer others on all the time on LinkedIn, which I think's absolutely brilliant. I find your content very interesting, informative, and relative, and you stay away from those safety pictures of people doing stupid stuff in health and safety. You don't share a lot of really the in-court stuff or HSE inspectors in your area, so your content is very much the type of content that I look for and get value from. So I see your LinkedIn persona a lot, but I'm really desperate to know a little bit more about Neil Fisher, the man behind the LinkedIn persona. So we're going to kick off with some questions.
Okay.
Okay, so how would you describe your childhood, Neil?
Childhood was, I'd say, typical for a lot of people from where I'm from Doncaster, little mining town called Armthorpe. The village was built around the colliery there, Markham Main. When the mines closed in the 80s, it decimated the area, poverty, crime, drugs, all the usual stuff. Brought up in quite a strict household. Very, very discipline focused, the disciplined heavy parents. You know, the amount of smacks on the arse, slaps on the face I got, and groundings and stuff as a mischievous boy. Yeah, got all that type of thing. So, but I wouldn't say it was out of the ordinary. I think as I got a little bit older, I had a bit of a wayward brother. That affected my childhood quite a lot. I had to grow up quite quick in that respect. But yeah, just a typical sort of Yorkshire childhood, minus flat caps and whippets.
Brilliant. Okay, so did you enjoy school and education?
Oh no, not at all. Not whilst I was there. It was just a chore for me. I was cheeky. I wouldn't say I was naughty. Some of my teachers may disagree, but I was cheeky. I was kind of Jack the lad, the class clown. Somebody I wouldn't want my children to be, if I'm honest. I had no interest in school. I've got a very narrow concentration. If I'm enjoying something and I'm interested in it, I'll be laser focused. If I'm not, I'm looking out the window and I'm doing anything other than concentrating on it. And unfortunately, I still have that issue today. If I'm interested in a subject, I will concentrate on it and I will digest and learn it. If I'm not, it doesn't matter how long you sit and talk to me about something. If I'm not interested, I'm not interested. So
Yeah, sounds
yeah,
like me.
yeah, so I think that the school, I enjoyed it when I was there to an extent because it was the social element. Couldn't wait to leave, but then I'd say within 2 or 3 years of leaving, it was a case of, my God, how easy did I have it at school?
Sounds exactly like me, this
Yeah.
does, Neil. Okay, so who's been the biggest inspiration in your life?
I'd say recently, my daughter. So I've got a 5-year-old daughter, and she sort of kind of grounded me in a lot of things. You know, prior to having my daughter, it was a case, you know, you think things were important, but then once you have a daughter and she's painting your nails and painting your toenails and doing your hair for you, you know that's what's important. Whereas perhaps before I'd neglected the family side of life because always working, always training. Yeah, so I think recently inspiration would be my daughter.
Oh, that's lovely. That's so nice. Oh, so on LinkedIn, you impart your latest books that you're reading, which is
Mhm.
always really useful because I'm a big reader myself. Um, sometimes I always wonder is how you get time to write so many books. And the reason I ask this is that I've currently got about 6 books on my bedside table. Most of them are either a quarter read or half read and not full read. But I'd just love to hear from you how you find time to read.
So the reading, and it's something that a lot of people ask me about, is I've always read, even when I was at school, very young, from as long as I can remember, I've always had a book in my hand. It was never something that was forced on me by parents or teachers or anything, but from a very, very young age, I could read a lot and I could read quickly. And I've just, because I've always read, I've just carried that into adult life, and now I just digest stuff very, very quickly. Now, don't get me wrong, there are times that, let's say, for instance, some of my favourites, so Relationship Factor by Rosa Carrillo, Next Generation Safety Leadership, Clive Lloyd, People Power, Karen Hewitt,
Read all those, yeah.
Safety Performance Reimagined
Yeah.
by Brett Reed. Read all them within a few days each, but then because I read so quick, I don't sometimes pick it all up.
Yeah.
So I've had to go back and reread them and learn something each time. But I think that goes with most things that you read. But I'd say it's just, I read whenever I can, whenever I sit down, whenever I've got spare 5-10 minutes, I'll pick something up. I've always got a book in the van with me. So if I get held up anywhere, I'm reading. At home, I'm always reading. And don't get me wrong, I do have the same issue as you with I will have several books open, but because I like to do, one thing I've learned recently is I've been affecting my sleep by reading a lot of work related books in an evening. So what I've done is I've started reading the fiction stuff, the crime thrillers that I like, the spy thrillers, in an evening. So my brain's thinking more that way rather than focusing on the health and safety. And one of the things I found is that's really, really helped me, because if I'm reading for an hour before bed and it's about leadership or management or health and safety, that's what I'm thinking about. And then I'm applying it in my head to work and how I'm going to use it. And before I know it, I've been awake thinking about work for another hour.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I've got 2 books on the go at the minute, and about sort of the brand of your business and creating that or recreating it. And I've been reading it just before I go to bed, where it just sparks off this whole sort of brain energy, which you just don't need at 10 o'clock at night. But no,
Yeah.
that's really interesting. With me, I like to often listen to something by audiobook first, and then I buy in the book so I can go to the relevant sections. That's a common one with me, and that's what I did with the Karen Hewitt book.
Yeah, you see, a lot of people used to recommend podcasts and things like that to me, and the audio books, and I was always, no, staunch, I've got to have a book. It's got to be the book. I don't concentrate as well reading an iPad. I'll get distracted and start looking at LinkedIn and stuff. So I was always sort of staying away from podcasts, but I've started listening, like when I'm traveling, I'll put Diary of a CEO on quite a lot.
Love it.
Listen to them quite a bit. The only problem is that just then sparks me going onto Amazon and ordering more books that they recommend. So it's a never-ending cycle.
Oh dear. No, I love it. Love it. So Neil, why a career in health and safety?
So about 2008, so it was either 2007, 2008, I had a nasty accident at work, and I don't know if you can see, but my middle finger on that hand, my middle finger bent over, and you won't be able to see it on the camera, but I've got a big scar across there. And what I was doing was, I was relatively new, I'd say within a year or two of working on the railway, and I was carrying a big heavy jack on my shoulder, lost my footing going up a banking, put my hands out to break my fall. The jack came down on the back. Now, I'm utterly convinced, had I not had gloves on, I'd have lost my finger. And in reality, at the time, the only reason I had gloves on was because it was February and I was in Newcastle and it was freezing cold. But when I sort of got up, I was instantly feeling sick. I looked at my hand, my finger, that hand was pointing that way, and then the glove was filling up with blood. So then sort of sat down, I was sick. I said to my foreman at the time, I need to go to the hospital. And my foreman was a sort of tough as nails, old school, ex-miner. He looked at me, he laughed, and he said, "Not today, young'un. It's Friday. It's job and knock. We'll drop you off at hospital when we get home." So Newcastle to Doncaster is a 2-hour drive. We had to do the work we needed to do, then drive home. It was freezing cold, so I had to sort of literally manipulate my finger back into a reasonable place where it should be, and obviously didn't do a very good job because it sits wonky now. And at the time I was really inexperienced on the railway, but even then I knew it was wrong, and that wasn't right. And it, like today, even today I suffer with it in the cold weather, and it's really bad. And I thought, and it was around about 2011-12, and I just thought, do you know what, that's something I'd like to get into, preventing that from happening again. And then I did a very brief sort of internal training course called Be Safe for London Underground, and I found I was really interested in it. And when I'm really interested, it's laser focused. So then here I am 10 years later.
No, brilliant. That's a really good background story. Yeah, I always love to hear why people got into it as a career, and there's so many different journeys in. But no, that's great, Neil. Okay, so I have been stalking you on LinkedIn. I hope you don't mind.
No.
Because that's what we do.
Yeah.
And so, and there's not a lot I have to say about what you did before your health and safety career. So just talk me through. Obviously, you worked on the rail, but what about before that?
So I left school in 1999 as a 16-year-old. I instantly got so when I did my work experience, I went to a construction company called Henry Boot. And when I did that, when I finished my work experience, they said to me, when you leave, get in touch and we'll give you an apprenticeship. So I got in touch with them, and I did all the aptitude tests, and they said, right, your options are, says you've scored really well on your aptitude test, so you can pick whatever discipline you want. So it was either paint, decorating, joinery, bricklaying, general operatives. What else were there? Might have been plumbing. So I decided to go for paint and decorating. Now, at the time, it was £55 a week, and I think I lasted for about 4 to 6 weeks, something like that. And then I saw sort of a warehouse job that was paying like £200 a week. So being so short-sighted with it, with the long term, I thought, do you know what, I'm going to go for that. So I packed in the apprenticeship, went and did warehouse jobs, and that's kind of where I was drifting from, warehouse jobs. I did get a job in a call centre, which was just like transporting me back in time. So this was about 2005, 2006, and it was like transporting me back to school. I was rubbish at selling on the phone, absolute rubbish, but it was people of a similar age were very social, going out for drinks after work and stuff. So it was just like being back at school. Did very little work, so I only lasted probably 4 or 5 months, and then the chance to go and do a railway apprenticeship came up, and I did that, and I think that was 15 years ago, so probably early 20s, 24, something like that. Went back and started all over again. So drifting prior to railway, it was just more warehouse jobs, call centre, drifting from things to things, never for more than, I think the longest job I had held down was for about a year. Never really interested me in anything. Attention span of just nothing if I'm not interested. So and that's where it is. And I sort of enjoyed the engineering aspect of the railway, took that on board, did really well. Got a role that's called COS on the railway. It's Controller of Site Safety. Now, I'd love to say that that's because the company I worked for at the time recognised how safety conscious I was, but in reality, it was because my foreman didn't want to do it. So I got put forward for it. I loved it, excelled at it, and then just sort of had my accident, and then sort of started making the moves into safety.
Fantastic. No, that's really interesting. So think back over your jobs then that you've had in your life. Who's been your best boss and why? You don't have to name them if you don't want to. Yeah,
so I'd say a few years ago, and it was very early on in my safety career, I had one boss that was very No, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. This is what you do. Very regimented, old school checklist, tick box, compliance heavy. It was all about the paperwork type of approach. Then he left, and the guy that came in, he was quite, I'd say he was early 60s, but he was so laid back, but at the same time, he brought something out of me. He made me think about, it wasn't right, you follow the checklist, you do this, you do that. It's right, well, think about that. How would you deal with that? And he was very, very good with the non-technical, the soft skills, as you will, very good at bringing that out and making me stop and think about stuff rather than it being I'm a health safety person and my book says you're doing that wrong. Right, more towards have a chat with him, ask him why they're doing it like that. What is it that you can help them with? And he sort of brought that out. And unfortunately, I only worked with him for about 6 months, but he was one of them that I was doing my NVQ5 at the time. And he was really helpful with that in building my confidence, because he'd say, when you do your NVQ, you did your NVQ5, didn't you? So when you're putting your evidence together and then you're writing your assignment and then submitting them, he used to say, send me your assignment before you send it in and I'll proofread it and I'll tell you if you need to change anything. So, I'd be like, I'm gonna have to send him it, and he's going to change this, he's going to tell me to do that. And there was never an assignment that he told me to change. He might have said, just reword this a little bit here, but it was, look, you've nailed it, you've done really well. And he was very good at that people management and building that confidence. And even today, I still think about some of the lessons that he imparted on me. And like I said, we were only working together for about 6 months, but even now he has made a big impact.
Oh, amazing. Oh, sounds good. So have you ever worked in a toxic workplace? Have you ever experienced that?
Yeah, very much so. So I'd say, be careful how I say this. So the employer that I currently work for, a couple of years ago, there was a very toxic individual who had line management responsibilities over me. He's no longer with the business for various reasons. And he, at the start of COVID, he just took this very dim view of contractors and Network Rail direct employed staff. And I'll choose my words carefully. The Network Rail direct staff got looked after better. Contractors got laid off, brought back, laid off. And when you're a contractor, if you're not working, you're not earning. And it just went about in the wrong way. And it was quite a toxic individual in that he'd talk behind people's backs. He'd slag everyone else off to you, but then slag you off to everyone else. And I'd say that scenario and that time did knock my confidence for quite a long time as well. And it's something I still think about today. So yeah, I have worked in toxic workplaces where things get hidden, things get said. You leave the office, you're getting talked about, and you're getting talked about. You walk into the office and people stop talking and look at you, and you think, you were talking about me then.
Yeah, I know that feeling, definitely.
Yeah.
So one person's name of who you most admire in the health and safety industry. Give me one person's name.
See, I've thought about this, and it's difficult to narrow one down. I've always said that I admire you a lot, Hugh Maxwell.
Oh, thank you.
I think all of the Safety 7, I think I admire all of them. I think the more sort of famousy type people, Brené Brown.
Yes.
I'm just absolutely fascinated with anything and everything Brené does. Books, videos, I could just sit and watch them all day. They have a real big influence on me and how I do things. I do resonate quite a lot with them. But there's so many, it's difficult to nail one person down because there's so many people doing so many good things. Don't get me wrong, there's quite the opposite. There's a lot of people doing a lot of crap things. But at the moment, especially on LinkedIn, there's so many people doing so much good stuff and sharing it as well. And you just think, do you know what? That's really, really good. I really admire that.
Yeah, that's what I like. There's some really great content out there, and those just selling direct, hopefully, are just dying off. I tend to want to follow those. I don't want to be sold to. That's not why I'm on LinkedIn. So no, I need to look a bit more into Brené Brown. That's, you know, I know a little bit, but it's definitely one name that crops up when I speak to different sort of safety and leadership people. So yeah.
She's just fantastic because she's like a professor. She's supremely educated, knows so much about shame, guilt, all that sort of stuff. But at the same time, you listen to her videos, she swears, she's down to earth, she gives personal examples of where she fails at the stuff she does, and she's really, really relatable, even though she's this global phenomenon.
Yeah.
She's amazing.
Oh no, that's fantastic. I'll definitely, after this session, I'll look her up. So just in a few words, what makes a great safety professional?
For me, somebody that can listen to people and communicate. I think for me, they are the two biggest skills that someone can have. I know other people think other things, but if you can listen to someone and you can really hear what they're saying, the verbal and the non-verbal, and you can communicate properly with them. Now, as a health and safety professional, we could be, so I say for me, for instance, I could be talking to someone who's going out getting the boots dirty today. So the boots on ballast. Then this afternoon, I could be talking to a director.
Yeah.
So it's about communicating in the right way at the right time to the right people to get the best out of what you want to achieve. And by doing that, you have to be able to listen and understand what's being said. And sometimes, you know, someone might say something. It's the old, "How are you doing? You all right?" "Yeah, I'm fine." "No, actually, how are you?" It's listening to that non-verbal cue and, you know, digging into things. So listening and understanding for me are the biggest. I think, you know, we could argue about all day long about technical and non-technical. You can have 10 NEBOSH certificates. If you're a shit communicator, you're a shit communicator.
I totally agree with that. Yeah, they do say are higher for personality and those softer skills, and the technical will come. And that's always stood me well in life, to be honest. I've had my biggest challenges hiring the most technical people compared to the other way around. So I think that's really good advice, Neil. Okay, so you're staring at your 16-year-old self in the mirror. What's your advice to that person?
Start earlier with what you want to do. So just, I think as a 16-year-old, I'd left school quite cocky. You know, Jack the lad, wasn't interested in a lot other than socializing and girls. I think enjoy your life, but be kind to people whilst you're doing it. Make sure that you're not hurting anyone along the way, and just live the life the best you can, and just be kind to people. And I know it can be a bit corny, that, but I think a lot of the times, especially when you're younger, you don't think of how your actions can affect others. And, you know, getting drunk, being silly, doing silly things, hurting girls when when you're that sort of age. I know I don't want to say it's a fact of life because it doesn't have to be. Trying to have this conversation with my 19-year-old son now. So just being kind to people. And I think for me, I often think I got into safety when I was 24, 25. No, that's a lie. That'll be 20 railway when I was 24. So health and safety when I was 28. I wish I'd have started sooner.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I wish I'd have started sooner because I've found my vocation now. And once safety brings you in, you don't get out, do you? If you're genuine, you don't get out. You can't get out because it affects every. You know, you can't go for a dinner in a restaurant without looking at fire escapes, can you?
Tell me about it.
You just can't. You just can't do it. So I think I wish I'd have started a little bit earlier. And, you know, talking to my 16-year-old self, it'd have probably been a little too late to try harder at school. But I think if I'd have gone back to being 14, try harder at school.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if I'd have done that, would I be where I am now? I could be doing something
Absolutely
completely different. So I think I've come out good in the end. I think I've done really well of 10 years of dedication and getting to where I am. So it's like I've got a long,
Well,
yeah, I've 39 in a couple of weeks, so I've got a long time working yet.
you're just merely a baby, Neil, merely a baby. Okay, so two questions left. So there's one on best advice for those who want to get into health and safety. So someone asks you, I want to get into it. What's your advice?
So I get this question a lot with people messaging me. So what I always advise is speak to the company you're working for now. Ask them if you can shadow the existing health and safety team, if there's any health and safety material or training that you could be considered for. One thing I always say is experience will always stand you in good stead on any job interview you go for, because health and safety is that closed bag, isn't it? You can't get a job because you can't get the experience. You haven't got experience, but you can't get experience because you haven't got the job. So it's that closed loop. So what I've always said and advised is, if you Google, so we've all got the internet at the end of our fingers now, local health and safety consultants is in your area, within 5-10 miles, whatever's commutable for you, and ask them if there's anything whatsoever that you can do to help, be it volunteer with them, doing general bits of admin. So I don't know what you're like. I have admin all over the shop because there's always something else to do, and admin's quite low down. Important, but it's quite low down on the priority list. Even if it's the stuff that's, filing, scanning stuff in, reading stuff, and just seeing how health and safety practitioners work. So shadowing, anything like that, that as an experience, if you put that on your CV as you've had this experience, you're volunteering, that will stand out, and it puts you above, in my eyes, that would put you above someone. If two people go for a job, one's got a NEBOSH certificate, one hasn't, but the one that hasn't has got 6 months experience of volunteering at a health and safety consultancy, I know which one I'm going to think is the better. That might not always be the case, but the experience element will always stand out. So
from my experience, those with the passion have persistence, most definitely. And, people will say, I've emailed a health and safety consultant in my area. Well, I'd be saying to that, have you emailed 20? Because, one will come back to you. And I've certainly done that. And it's an individual being contacted and allowed people to come and shadow me. And then those people have come on to work for me. So I am proof that the advice that you are giving is the right advice, most definitely.
Yeah, and not just email either, because, they could ring them up or go and see them, because emails, I average probably anywhere between 70 and 100 emails a day.
Me too.
I get copied into so much stuff. I won't swear, but I get copied into so much stuff that's just people copying me in. I lose track often, and there's stuff that gets missed. And if you have a couple of days out out on site, you're coming back to a couple of 100 emails. It's easy to miss stuff. So if you persistence beats resistance, that's what I always tell people. If you're persistent with something, I'm not saying ring the same health and safety consultant 15 times, but if you email, then follow it up a day later or 2 days later with a phone call.
Yeah, definitely.
And just keep trying that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really good advice, Neil. And my last question is, obviously we've met properly through you inviting me to come onto the Safety 7 group, which I was really happy about and very grateful for. But what I want to know is what you hope to achieve from your involvement and leadership of the Safety 7.
So the Safety 7 came about as an idea because I think there's a space in health and safety that's not being filled at the minute. There's lots of people doing lots of good things. A lot of the time it's for that individual. Now, as we've discussed about people, it's a difficult profession to get into, and it can be, but there's so much that we can do to support and help others. And I think if we just, that's where the idea came from. And there's lots and lots of good stuff that's being done. James McPherson, for instance, springs to mind. Risk Fluent, Project Millennium, rebranding safety, amazing stuff. that he's doing really is changing the face in that area. What I wanted to do was something slightly different, but inviting people in, talking to them, sharing experience, getting their thoughts, what they think, what we can help them with, and just sort of giving back as much as we can. And that was the idea and the concept behind the Safety 7 is supporting and helping others to get into the profession. And when they're in there, you know, we all need someone to help. There's nobody that knows everything. So you can get, you know, grad IES, you can be chartered, you can be a chartered fellow. You don't know everything. So it's building a sort of community now with the Safety 7. And there's lots of people that get involved. There's lots of people that message us. And it was getting that sort of like-minded people together, thinking about it and supporting others. And I think that's kind of where we're going with it. And everyone seems to have gelled really, really well. I don't think it could have gone any better, to be fair. And the amount of stuff that we're doing to give back, you know, the sessions, the giving away the NEBOSH courses, the fundraising, you know, I think we're doing a cracking job.
Yeah, no, I agree with all that. And I think that common purpose of the 7 of us is there to serve others. I think that's a really important aspect of giving back. And I think those who are the happiest in life, happiest in their careers, are not the money chasers. They are the people who want to give back and help others. So thanks for that, Neil. And
No problem.
it's been really interesting getting to know you, and hopefully our talk today will inspire others. Thank you.
Thank you very much.